Am I the antagonist for being ungrateful with my parents' gifts? Backstory. I have mentioned in some of my other posts how toxic my mother has been while I was growing up. She used both physical and psychological methods to teach me. I can't even get into depth with how much abuse I dealt with while living with my mother. The worst thing is that she abandoned me when she just grew too lazy to actually take care of me along with my sister, leaving us with my grandparents. The only other time I saw her during those times is when she wanted to drag us somewhere to make her look good, or when she needed something from my grandparents. One of these visits I had just confessed to my grandmother that I was suffering from depression and it was getting really bad, from which she told my mother. My mother didn't even bother checking on me and just left. I'm doing better now, but her abuse had a major impact on me, affecting how I interact with others, making it even harder to trust people. I'm now 20 and still living with my grandparents, but planning on moving very soon once I convince them to let me go on my own. My mother has also reappeared into my life and taken my sister with her as she still has rights to her and my sister agreed to go. I thought that would be the end of it, but she would continue to pop around whenever she feels like it, especially if it means showing off the new baby she recently had, which I talked about in another post. I mostly keep myself in my room during these visits, and she doesn't really bother to talk to me at all and just talks to my grandparents. However, on Easter she arrived with a gift basket, which surprised me as it's been years since she even gave me a gift. But what was in it just disappointed me. She said she didn't know what exactly to get me, so she chose bath stuff. Not only was this pointless since I mostly take showers and don't take baths all that often, but it also shows how little she even knew about me. I may be an adult, but I still enjoy the things I enjoyed as when I was a kid. If she would at least make some effort to get to know me, maybe even ask what I still like, maybe she would at least have known that, but it just shows how little she knows about her own daughter. My own sister even had to step in when my birthday started to approach just to correct the gift she was going to get me because she actually knew what I like. I know this makes me sound entitled about the gift, but personally I would have preferred not to have received anything from her rather than for her to get me something and admit she knew absolutely nothing about me. It's her own fault she knew nothing about me because she never bothered to get to know her own daughter even when I was a kid. Her trying to make an effort only to fail just felt so empty, because why would she suddenly be trying to get back in my life after years of abuse and neglect? It's clear that your mother's lack of effort to understand you and your interests is disheartening, especially after the hardships you've faced. Moving forward, it's important to prioritize your well-being and set boundaries that make you feel comfortable in your interactions with her. Am I the antagonist for asking a deaf person to stop signing in class because it was distracting? First off, for some context, I am a music major in college and I'm all for accessibility. When, let's say, Joe introduced himself and his interpreter, I said, "Wow, this is really interesting." Not because he is hard of hearing, but rather because he is a deaf person majoring in something that specifically requires hearing, which baffled me. Everything was fine. We all got used to the interpreter being there, and no one really paid attention to the fact that he was deaf, except for one class. A class that everyone, as music majors, takes, a performance recital class. In this class, people take turns each week to perform. In the beginning of the year, it was explained to us some basic common decency, like clapping when they finish singing, not talking and turning off your phone, just being nice to the performer, you know? Anyways, the year started off fine in this class, but lately, you could tell he wasn't signing to his interpreter about the songs. The reason for this is because we sing opera classical songs in this class, so the interpreter didn't know the language. To be fair, no one did, so she definitely wasn't translating the songs but rather just cracking jokes. He's laughing in the middle of the performances. You can just imagine as a performer seeing someone laugh while you are performing. On top of that, this is all happening in the front row, with the interpreter in front of the stage on the side laughing as well, snickering and giggling throughout the performance. So much so that even one of the performers looked to the side to see what was happening but just kept singing and ignoring it. I tried ignoring it, thinking, you know what, he's deaf, he already has a hard time, no need to bug him more. But I finally had enough when a friend of mine sang her song. She and I had previously translated the song. It was a very sad song about death. What was Joe doing? Signing, not just signing, smacking his hands and laughing about something else. He made a gesture that you do when someone is pregnant, you know, like making a circle over your stomach and rubbing it. Maybe that means something else, but laughing, like, come on, not just quiet laughing by audible snickering. Finally, I had enough and went up to both him and the interpreter. I explained how I understand the need to translate what the teacher is saying and everything else, but that the last song that my friend sang was not a funny song. It was not only distracting but also rude to be talking and laughing while someone is performing, especially when you are right smack in the front row. The interpreter stayed quiet, and he just went on to say that I'm ableist and that it shouldn't matter what he does because he's deaf and I can't take his means of communicating. But I'm not saying he should stop. I'm saying in the middle of performances, at least do not laugh. Anyways, what do you guys think? Am I the antagonist? It's great that you value accessibility, but it seems like the interpreter's behavior during the performances was disruptive rather than helpful, and it's understandable that it bothered you. It's important to find a balance between accommodating different needs and being respectful to those performing. Am I the antagonist for a situation I am in with my mother? I, 25-year-old female, live on my own, and my parents have always been very controlling of me, as they were with my two older siblings. Last year my father died, and since then my mother has become extremely overbearing, especially when it comes to money. She's constantly asking for money from me, usually for her bills or shopping trips, sometimes even for things I pay for myself, like gas. Every time she asks for money, she gets angry if I don't give it right away, and has started getting very manipulative with it, telling me that if you loved your dad, you would, or asking me to help her out, because your dad always did so. I can't really refuse without feeling like a terrible person. This has been going on for the past year, and last month when she asked if I could give her $80 for my mom to go shopping with, I told her no, and that she needed to pay back some of the money she had borrowed from me over the past few months because she was supposed to have paid it back by then. Instead of listening, she got upset and asked if I could give her $10 for gas since she was out of money and her car needed gas. I told her no again, but said that I would give her some later that day after work if she still needed it. When I came home from work, she had already left and didn't come back until late the next night, telling me to go get groceries for her because she was too tired from working all day. I went to bed angry at her manipulation of money since she only works part-time and has more than enough money in her bank account. I know this because she showed me how much is in there. So the next morning, I told my mom that she needed to pay back the $60 she had borrowed from me over the past year. I didn't ask for it, I just gave it back to her and told her that if she wanted money again, she needed to pay it back first. This made her extremely angry, and she started screaming at me about how she was my mother and how she always helped me out when I was growing up, so now I have to do the same for her. She said that even though I don't live with her anymore, I still owe her everything, because she raised me and without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. This really hurt me because my mom is a great person, but she has always been very controlling and manipulative of us as children, so I feel like now she's taking advantage of that to get money from me whenever she wants it. Anyway, this all happened last week, and I hadn't spoken to her since then. I'm going to therapy to deal with my feelings about it, but am I the asshole for giving back the $60 she borrowed? It sounds like you're in a tough spot with your mom's financial requests and the emotional manipulation tied to them. Setting boundaries with her about repaying borrowed money is reasonable, but maybe a calm conversation about mutual respect and financial expectations could help ease the tension between you two. It's important to prioritize your own well-being and feelings in this situation, so don't be too hard on yourself for standing up for yourself. Am I the antagonist for giving my sibling a month to get their act together? My mother sadly passed away 3 months before this post and was in hospice care for some time before. Since her admittance to hospice, I, 25-year-old male, have been the main breadwinner in our house, supporting my father, 70 years old male, and brother, 20-year-old male college student. Even before our mother's passing, my brother would laze around, engaging in typical late-teen young adult behavior like lying in bed and gaming past midnight. It could take him a week to do a load of laundry, including 3 days of nagging beforehand, and even after doing it, he just dumps all the fresh cleaned clothes on his bedroom floor, which looks like a pigsty and can't even be seen for the piles of clothes and rubbish. I hold the opinion that he is old enough to make his own decisions and should be responsible for his actions in and out of the house, so I leave it up to him how he keeps his room. However, the truth of the matter is, he has been spoiled rotten and has rarely had to lift a finger, so I have been having a hard time getting him to take initiative and use his eyes and mind around the public areas of the house. Laundry dishes, even throwing out empty food packets that he has emptied. I've tried both hard and soft methods to get him to use initiative, but neither have worked for various reasons. Recently, I took a short trip abroad to clear my head, leaving my father and brother with instructions, plenty of food and essentials, knowing all that they would need was more food, which would be cheap enough to get. I got home late, and when I got up the next morning, it was to find the house in a mess. Empty food packets, hardly any food at all, trash full, no liner in the general waste bin, and mold in the green compost waste. Empty saucepans were piled up on the stove, and crumbs were everywhere. What was more, I soon found one of our laundry drying racks was broken at the base and would not stand up. Both denied knowing how it happened, but I know my father is always honest with me, so I suspect my brother because I knew it had been all right when I left. Now grief I understand, but even in my grief, I have been balancing a new job with running the house, buying food, cooking, cleaning, etc. And I need my brother to start taking even a little responsibility because I can't do everything in the house and work full-time, and my father is a bit too old to be doing so, though he helps in his ways, but brother doesn't seem to understand. With that in mind, shortly after the drying rack debacle and in a slight temper, I gave my brother an ultimatum. 1 month to start pulling his weight, or he finds another roof, as I am tired of dealing with his mess, and I'd rather he made a place of his own, a pigsty. Again though, he is a college student living off grants and hardly pays rent. Am I the asshole for threatening to kick him out? TL Dr. Young adult brother refuses to help around the house following mother's death. I give him a month to start pulling his weight, or he is gone. Am I the asshole? It sounds like you've taken on a lot of responsibility in your household, especially after your mother's passing, and it's understandable that you're feeling overwhelmed. It's important for your brother to recognize the effort you're putting in and contribute his fair share to the household responsibilities. Giving him an ultimatum may be a way to communicate the seriousness of the situation, but approaching it with understanding and empathy could lead to a more constructive resolution for everyone involved. Am I the antagonist for not wanting to let my ex-roommate move back in, potentially making them homeless? Hey everyone, last week I, 35-year-old autistic male, posted here to mention how when I was out, my former roommate, 32-year-old male, smashed my Xbox Series S to find government cameras. Neighbors heard the noise and called the cops. Despite the rude comments in my other thread, he wasn't on meth or crack or anything harder than occasional pot, and only made references to government conspiracies, not being involved in them. I have been telling the prosecutor, judge, public defender, and even my former roommate that I don't want him jailed. Just mental health services and I'm good. They reached an agreement where he will go to at least 2 weeks in an inpatient serious ward for mental health check, involuntary treatment, then can be demoted to regular inpatient for 2 more weeks with evaluation. Medication if necessary. He didn't thank me for helping him avoid jail when he called from Lourdes. He did offhandedly mention he can't afford to replace my Xbox because of fines from being arrested or possible medications, but he totally will at some point. He then, in the same breath, asked if he could move in just for 2 or 3 months while he works and saves money, otherwise, he will be homeless. We were already sharing a 1-bedroom apartment. Apartment management has been a lifesaver, letting me keep my apartment at half the rent I paid. I'm an autistic agoraphobe on $800 SSI month. It covers rent, toiletries, cat food, and $55 a month for entertainment. Beyond grateful and happy to management and social security, lifesavers, as I've been homeless simply because even $325 a month places wanted 3 or 4 times the rent in income. Anyways, I told my roommate, no, I wouldn't feel safe leaving my cats alone with you again. I don't want your life ruined, but I don't want you in mine. I understand it's a trivial video game console, but I have agoraphobia. A part of that is basically fear of the outside world, fear of leaving the house and something awful happening, or basically being frozen, uncertain of how to react in a social response. So I left home, came back, and my video game console was smashed by my roommate and friend. Kind of feeds into that. The whole thing was still about him. Anyways, am I the asshole? You are not the asshole. Your safety and well-being come first, and setting boundaries is crucial. It's important to prioritize your own mental health and safety in this situation. Am I the antagonist for kicking my friend and her 2 kids out of my house? I, 22 years old female, allowed a friend of mine, 21 years old female, and her 2 kids, both under 4 years old, to move in with me when she got kicked out of her family's house. My house has 2 bedrooms and my mom, 43 years old female, lives with me, so I said they could stay in my room. I work 3-4 night shifts a week, so I didn't mind sharing my space since it's not always being used. However, I started noticing early on how dirty my house was getting. I brushed it off, thinking she works a full-time job plus has 2 kids, so it's to be expected. I asked her to try to keep up with cleaning, but that didn't help. Dishes piled up in the sink, we have a dishwasher, kids' dirty sippy cups in almost every room of the house, along with using my dining room as a giant storage unit. Cleaning aside, her kids are also a nightmare. They have no structure. She allows them to do whatever they want, and they scream cry louder than any kids I've ever seen when they don't get their way. She doesn't pay attention to them and is always on her phone. She has been living with me for 7 months now. I will add that I have not made her pay for anything. I feel as though the bills would be paid whether she were here or not. She buys groceries, which I help myself to, and she picks up things from the store if I ask. We discussed apartment hunting, but she was going through a divorce and wanted to wait until it was over. It's been 2 months since the divorce settled. She applied for apartments since then and said it's a 4-6 month wait, but I don't think I can hold out that long. My mom got fed up early on and has barely been home since. She tries to sleep elsewhere whenever she can. I only recently began to get severely frustrated and, instead of being at my own home, I have been staying at a friend's as much as I can. She's been doing a bit better with cleaning after a big argument she and my mom got into about her being a slob. She's very sensitive, and I feel conflicted starting serious conversations with her because I don't want to make her cry. I finally was fed up enough and told her she has until June to move out. I was very nice about it and even told her I was sorry if this puts her in a bind, but I just need my space back. She told me thanks for the notice and that was it. She left her iPad at home and her messages were going off, so I snooped. Total breach of privacy. I do know that I am the off for this, but my curiosity got the best of me. In the messages with her coworkers, she forwarded my message to them, and they were kind of bashing me for it. One saying forget her and she goes on to say that it's okay, and it was a nice laugh, and that everything we use of hers is put away and we can buy our own. I don't use any of her stuff that I can recall. It's my house, and I have everything I need already there. I thought I came across as being pretty nice about it by at least giving her notice, and not just kicking her out right away. I feel like I've put up with a lot more than what others would have, but I'm not very emotional, so I don't really know how others would feel about this. Am I the It sounds like you've been incredibly generous and patient with your friend and her kids in a tough situation, but it's understandable that your living arrangements have become overwhelming. Setting a boundary and giving her a timeline to find a new place shows that you're prioritizing your own well-being, which is completely valid in this situation. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.